Hello and welcome. I'm Phil Torres, here to talk about innovations that can change lives. We're going to explore the intersection of hardware and humanity, and we're doing it in a unique way. This is a show about science by scientists. Let's check out our team of hardcore nerds. Lindsay Moran is an ex-CIA operative and analyst. Tonight, inside the chamber, they served our country and paid the price. Science versus the devastation of PTSD. A soldier's desperate battle. Costa Gramatis is an engineer who designed a bionic eye. Tonight, he's behind the wheel of the future, testing out a driverless car. Rochelle Oldmixon is a neuroscientist. And I'm Phil Torres, I'm an entomologist. I study spiders in the rainforests of Peru. That's our team, now let's do some science. Hey guys, welcome to Techknow, where we bring you life-changing innovations in the field of science. I'm Phil Torres, and I'm here with Costa, Rochelle, and Lindsay. Now, Lindsay, you went to one of the largest marine bases in the country.
That's right. I went to Camp Lejeune, which is in North Carolina. And it's funny, when we think of Camp Lejeune, we think of a place where they prepare our soldiers to go into the battlefield. But in fact, the military is dealing with an epidemic problem of wounded warriors returning with what are essentially completely invisible wounds, and I'm talking about PTSD. And at Camp Lejeune, the military is looking at some really creative and innovative ways to apply technology to combat this problem. The ugliness of war has made an indelible mark on the minds of many veterans.
Hey, do we have a casualty?
Right over there, there's openings in the window.
And can linger long after deployment has ended. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, was first diagnosed in 1980, but has been suffered by warriors as long as there's been war.
We had battle fatigue and shell shock from other wars, but clearly it appears the underlying cause of those conditions were the same as the underlying causes of what we call post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury today. And yet we know so little about what is really at the cellular level, at the physiologic level within the body, what's causing them. So the only way we can find out those answers is through technology.
One promising technology deals with the very air that we breathe. Dr. Daniel Leslie at the Naval Hospital in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, is conducting a research study where 100% oxygen is delivered to wounded veterans in the hope of promoting more rapid healing of brain tissue. What's the scientific reasoning behind trying 100% oxygen in order to heal traumatic brain injury?
Nobody knows the exact answer yet. So one thing that we do know is that their brain is getting more oxygen. Their entire body is getting more oxygen. The blood vessels which help to carry the blood may increase in number, increase in where they are, so that they can feed everything more effectively, even long after you come out of the chamber.
For veterans, traumatic brain injury is often caused by an explosion, where the resulting concussion causes damage to the brain. The air we breathe contains 21% oxygen. By increasing that amount to 100%, the theory is that a more rapid flow of oxygen through the blood and to the brain will act as a drug, repairing the damage caused by the explosion.
We know it works in other parts of the body. We know it works in the bones. We know it works in the eyes. We know it works in a bunch of different things. And there are a bunch of different approved uses for hyperbaric oxygen that everybody's reasonably sure that they work. We just don't know if those same effects are effective yet for TBI.
And what is the relationship between TBI, traumatic brain injury, and post-traumatic stress disorder? Is there some kind of overlap there?
Traumatic brain injury is a form of concussion in which you actually have loss of consciousness, alteration of consciousness. In our population, we often have an overlap. It's relatively difficult to get a traumatic brain injury without it being in a very traumatic situation. So if you are in war, getting blown up, it is something which you do fear for your life, in which you are exposed to horrible things often. So very frequently we get people with both.
All right, Dr. Leslie, say I'm a wounded warrior Walk me through this. What is this process?
We're going to put this on. This is going to be the seal portion, which is going to mean that this whole area around your head is going to be filled with 100% complete oxygen, no regular air, but it's not going to go anywhere else. It's just going to stay within here. Just go in and out through those tubes. I'm just going to snap it shut. And you are good to go. All right. So it's going to self-inflate and closed.
The clinical trial consists of 40 sessions throughout a 12-week period.
Now, I'm a little claustrophobic, but this doesn't feel so bad. Why is PTSD and also TBI so difficult to diagnose and to treat?
They're unseen injuries, if you will. Somebody gets exposed to a blast or a gunshot wound. I mean, you can see the effects of that blast or that gunshot wound. If somebody is exposed to psychological trauma, it's all inside. If there's an invisible wound or an invisible scar from psychological trauma, the people around you, family, co-workers, colleagues, shipmates, they may not even know that you're suffering from that wound.
Our real hope is that we will be able to let people get back to their lives, because that's the one thing that I hear people say over and over again. I just want my life back.
I don't like to go to sleep because I know it's waiting for me on the other side when I close my eyes.
Corpsman Jacob Lee Daldos is one such soldier, searching for life as it used to be. Daldos suffered a traumatic brain injury while on a training mission in Uganda when an artillery shell exploded nearby.
It was one of those things where I can deal with it now and I can play through the pain, so to speak, and then I can get treatment for it later.
I think we just hit an IED.
And I just kind of pushed it off until we got back into the States, and then after that I went and found out exactly everything that was going on, and it was quite a list. So
What was going on?
I had memory problems, short-term, long-term, anger, irritability. I would get really angry and go outside and just kind of separate myself from everybody. And
Were you ever given a specific diagnosis like TBI or PTSD?
They gave me both of those, yes, TBI and PTSD. You see it, like you see the diagnosis happen in front of you. It affects everything. It affects your sleep, it affects your family, it affects you as a person. It took about 3 months of really hard fighting on my part to realize that I'm not gonna get back to full duty and that I'm not gonna be the way that I was before I deployed and before my injury. And that's something that you kind of have to come to grips with yourself.
I worry about our staff, actually, because they're very passionate about what they do. The burden is not getting any less, even though we're withdrawing forces from Afghanistan on a regular basis, and the size of the deployed force out there is getting smaller all the time. The workload isn't any less for our staff here today than it was a year or two ago. In fact, it's continued to grow.
Do you feel like by participating in this research program with the hyperbaric oxygen chamber that you might be helping future soldiers who might suffer from PTSD?
That was actually my goal going into the hyperbaric research program. I know there's no definitive care that they can give me or some magic solution to the problem, but my main focus was that I don't care if it helps me or not, but I'm hoping that this research will help my brothers down the line so that they can have a better shot at living a normal life.
The military is working on numerous fronts to battle this growing problem. Camp Lejeune is 2,700 miles and a world apart from the University of Southern California, where they're using virtual reality to combat post-traumatic stress disorder.
What I do remember is that it was one of the worst things I'd ever seen. It was just covered in flames, and he was in a lot of pain.
Like the hyperbaric oxygen study, it too is delivering promising results for the veterans involved. When we return, we'll look more closely at the innovations being developed at USC's Institute for Creative Technology, where traditional psychoanalysis gains a cutting-edge digital component to help those struggling with PTSD break through.
It's so terrible that these soldiers come back with these types of injuries.
The military is now dealing with this epidemic problem of PTSD. So both the military and some creative researchers at USC are looking at really innovative ways to apply technology to combat this issue.
Los Angeles may seem like an odd place to search for answers to PTSD. But the Department of Defense is finding encouraging results through partnerships with research institutes, like the one at USC. Skip Rizzo conducts research on the design and development of virtual reality systems.
Why would an organization that's as culturally staid and conservative and buttoned down as the military, why would they come to you guys for help?
We're sort of the odd alliance of Hollywood, the military, and academia, but we all get along, and all the great advances now in science really come from this kind of an interdisciplinary coming together of people with different levels of expertise that can create something where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I think what we've seen over the last 10 years is that the advances that have happened in the area of technology have really tried to focus on things that are going to make a difference for service members and veterans when they come back with psychological difficulties.
The Institute for Creative Technologies has created BraveMind, a clinical, interactive virtual reality therapy tool. Soldiers suffering PTSD are gradually immersed in virtual environments, representative of the same combat environments in which they were deployed. From a remote Afghan village to a crowded Iraqi marketplace, the numerous digital scenarios can be manipulated to recreate the exact location and situation that first brought on a soldier's traumatic stress. The virtual reality is then coupled with a tried and true interactive psychological tool called prolonged exposure therapy.
This I really don't like because I'm claustrophobic and I feel really enclosed here and I don't know what's going to be around any corner. So yeah, this is kind of tapping into my worst fears. All right, I'm going to get out of there. This is a generation of soldiers who grew up playing video games. How does that factor into this as a therapy?
If you give somebody the option of doing the straight, talk to a psychologist form of treatment, or you tell them, hey, we're going to put you in virtual reality and that's going to be part of the treatment. You know, digital generation folks, that's an easy choice. So we're hoping that that will help break down barriers to care.
To undergo this therapy, a patient has to descend into his or her worst nightmare and relive it again and again. And I would imagine that would be difficult, not just for him, but also for the clinician or therapist. So what's the psychological hope or benefit there?
Well, I think that you see these cycles of put someone in a simulation, they feel anxiety, and then over time the anxiety naturally dissipates, and you do this repeatedly, and eventually the person can face, confront, not avoid situations or thoughts, feelings that previously they just wanted to keep in a box.
Jonathan Warren is a Purple Heart vet, having served 2 tours in Iraq.
What was your first reaction to revisiting the horror through the virtual reality prolonged exposure therapy?
I was terrified. I mean, really, it was scary to go and confront the thing that I'd been avoiding so much, and in a way that was going to stimulate my vision and my sounds and my feeling. Like it was full immersion, and I just felt so bad that I couldn't keep living like that. I was willing to be miserable and to be sad and to experience more pain to get through it and to get to the other side. I'm in Iraq. It's in the afternoon, and I'm on a no-name route. I'm driving through the city. I see that the women and children are all heading back into the house.
So what happened at that point?
As soon as I turn right, we get hit by an IED. At this moment, I woke up and just surrounded by flames. I just took a deep breath and it just singed my lungs, and I thought I was trapped to die. I felt my mortality. I was confronted with death, and it really flipped my world upside down. I learned how to shut down my emotions and kind of just isolated myself emotionally. And my face was peeling off, and my lips were blistering, and this is when I saw Scotty getting out of the vehicle. My heart just dropped. With all the guys that I served with, it's a very, very close bond. With Scotty, he was like my little kid brother, and we were really close. He was doused in diesel fuel, and he was just in a lot of pain and scared, and I just thought he was dying right there.
You didn't have any resources at the time?
I had absolutely nothing, and I was helpless. I had nothing I could do. Listening to Scott in anguish.
Has this virtual reality treatment helped you in terms of coping with the PTSD?
I knew I wasn't going to be all of a sudden, boom, cured and fixed, but I knew that I was being given the tools to help me in my day-to-day life to kind of evaluate what my anxiety was all about.
What was the specific horror that you couldn't confront or that you couldn't revisit?
I was having a lot of guilt over the way I handled the situation when Scott was on fire. I was confronted with the question of, well, what could you have done differently? Do you think you're Superman? Do you think you can just put diesel fuel out with some dirt in your hands? And that kind of made me confront the fact that I really did everything that I could, and there's nothing to be disappointed about my own actions and what I did.
What we find is that by helping a patient to confront and process difficult emotional memories rather than avoiding them is the key to getting over PTSD.
What a powerful piece. It's so great to see that they're really tackling this head on.
In the theater of war, a lot of things happen to these guys that they're not going to deal with right then. I mean, we talked to one veteran who didn't want to seek treatment for any of his either physical or psychological issues because he wanted to get back out there and be with his Marines.
They're worried that it will be looked upon, would you say negatively?
Well, I think there's still somewhat of a stigma in the military, but it's just now that I think the military is looking at it as an epidemic that affects wounded warriors at great rates, and that's something that has to be dealt with.
Really interesting story. Hopefully we can follow up with this research and see where it goes. Now, Costa, what do you have for us next?
Imagine a future where you can just hop in your car, fall asleep, and it drives you to work. It's coming soon, and I explored it.
The road to the driverless car has been a long one.
We're all set for auto control.
This is how General Motors envisioned the future back in 1957.
You're now under automatic control. Hands-off steering.
That was then. This is now. Nissan's race for the first autonomous production vehicle is in the hands of top Japanese engineer Tetsuya Iijima, who had me figure out how it works.
These are your laser scanners,
yes,
and they send out big beams of laser,
yes,
and to determine how far the distance is.
Yes.
And then here we have a big radar panel that can see 200 meters ahead.
Yes.
And in the back of the car we have another radar panel here, and one over here as well.
Yeah.
And they determine
70 meters.
70 meters.
Yes.
Whether objects are approaching a car or going away from the car. And then all of these little guys are for parking. They're sonar.
Yes.
So they send out little chirps. And then you have cameras on every side of the car.
Yes.
This is a normal Nissan Leaf, but it's totally a prototype. So if when I open this up, you can see all of the...
This is kind of secret. Don't touch it.
I won't touch it. We're going to put autonomous mode. That's the autonomous button.
Yes.
Hit it.
Yes.
Autonomous mode activated.
So you have no hands. The camera's reading the speed limit sign now.
And input to the system.
And we're going to watch it slow down.
Yes. Automatically.
Red light. Camera's detecting it.
Signal is red.
Car says signal's red.
Signal is green.
No, it's not a color camera. How did it know?
Yeah, position.
Just the position of the lights. The system explains what it's doing so the driver's not confused ever. How did it know to go left now instead of going to the right?
Because reading the line.
It reads all those lines.
Yes.
So it follows the road using the cameras. And what happens if a kid comes out chasing a ball? Oh my God! Oh my God!
Wow.
We almost killed that guy. Thanks, car. It checks to see if there's anyone behind us, anyone next to us. It makes a decision whether to brake or swerve. Can we park it now?
Yeah.
And we can do that from the back seat, right?
Yeah. This is my space.
It's calling dibs on that spot, and now it's parking. And I love watching the steering wheel just spin itself. What happens if I interrupt it?
Stops. Completely stops.
It will completely stop,
Yeah.
and now it's going to go back from where it started.
Yes.
How many years till that's in all cars?
2020, by 2020.
As car makers head toward that date, the biggest obstacle may not be the technology, but the human factor. At Stanford University's Automobile Lab, they're using a state-of-the-art simulator to answer the question, how fast can drivers react when they're thrust back in control of an autonomous car?
What is the most dangerous time in an autonomous car?
The moment when the car shifts control from itself to the driver. Drivers are totally disoriented, and they're being asked to absorb an enormous range of activities, an enormous range of things going on to get what we call situation awareness, where there was none. And that turns out to be an extraordinary challenge.
I am going to be placing the EEG electrodes on your head.
Because we want to really understand what's going on in your brain and in your body and when you're driving. We also hook up the driver. We can see where their eyes are looking because we have an eye tracker.
They look great.
What their brain is doing at various points. We can see what their heart is doing.
This simulator was built to help us better understand ways to alert the driver that autonomous mode is being switched.
After several minutes of texting while the car is driving, watch what happens when I have to take control.
Please disable automation.
Car just asked me to disable automation. Why did the computer just decide to not? Uh-oh. I just crashed in about 12 cars because I wasn't paying attention. I was going really fast. So while I was hooked up, you were measuring my brain waves. You had sensors on my hands determining what was that doing?
So that's what's called autonomic arousal. So it has to do with how essentially excited you are, how ready for action you are. And a good driver is neither too excited nor too calm.
Will we be required to be plugged into the car so it knows what we're doing?
Definitely not. Eventually, cars will completely drive themselves.
Making the car the designated driver promises to revolutionize how we get around. But for Steve Mahan, who is almost completely blind, and others whose disabilities keep them from driving, the cars will completely transform their lives.
Auto driving.
Steve Mahan's head toward a glimpse of the future, inviting him to take the driver's seat in their first autonomous vehicle.
Look, Ma, no hand.
How'd that feel?
Incredibly normal and abnormal at the same time.
So the car was doing its thing. Did you have any instinctual responses?
All the things that you do as you drive just immediately come back. So we're here at the stop sign. Yep.
Even though you can't see?
Even though I can't see. Hey, anybody up for a taco? I suggested that we go to Taco Bell because that's a normal thing that I would do. This is some of the best driving I've ever done.
Do you think that you'll be able to be driving again in your lifetime?
Absolutely.
Costa, I have to ask, how safe is this?
When you hit, for example, black ice, race car driver mode kicks in and it's steering for you so that you'll never lose control. It knows how to handle those sort of situations. And I believe, not only did I feel safe, I think it's gonna be safer in general. I know it will.
Really interesting stories, you guys. Thank you for sharing them. We will be back next week with more Techknow.
Dive deep into these stories and go behind the scenes at aljazeera.com/techknow. Follow our expert contributors on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and more.